So you're running a Shopify store or BigCommerce or WooCommerce, or maybe you're selling on Amazon or eBay or Etsy. You probably spend most of your time thinking about what to sell and how to get it sold to more people. And that's a good thing. That's exactly how you should be spending your time. But of course, you've got to get products into your customers' hands one way or another. And that means ultimately that you're going to be doing shipping. Now, if you've never done this before, it is honestly kind of a lot. If you get 100 orders in a day, you could very easily spend the next day packing them if you are not used to this process. And even if you are, that's still going to be hours of work. Even a few orders a day can really eat up your time if you are not efficient. So what I want to do today is talk about how you can do things right. In this video, we're going to give you a complete guide to order fulfillment for e-commerce. We'll talk about what it is, how you can handle it, and the steps in the process. Then we'll briefly talk about whether you should do it on your own DIY style or whether you should hire some help. And just for a little more context, my name is Brandon. I am here on behalf of Fulfillrite, an order fulfillment company that has shipped for thousands of e-commerce and crowdfunding clients. We'd be happy to help you ship too. The quote doesn't cost a thing, so if nothing else, you get some free information on pricing. More information can be found down there in the description where you can find that link. But enough self-promotion. Let's talk about how you can get your e-commerce orders shipped. So let's go ahead and start with the obvious question. What is order fulfillment? Order fulfillment is the process of storing inventory, picking and packing products, and shipping them out to your customers. It's how you get your orders out in the mail, basically. Now, there are two ways that you can handle order fulfillment. You can do it on your own in-house, or you can get some help by hiring a fulfillment partner or a 3PL. There are pros and cons to both of these approaches. If you do the work in-house, you or your staff are going to be responsible for all of the shipping. And that's a lot of labor. Also have to manage the processes, which can get overwhelming. But if your order volume is low, it doesn't make a lot of sense to get a 3PL involved. I mean, think under 100 orders per month. And honestly, if you're good at managing the process and you get rates on postage that are good ones, you can even save on the 3PL fees. Now, on the other hand, if you hire a 3PL, you'll have to do a lot less work. You just send your inventory to them, hook up your store with their system, and then when the orders come in, they will get notified and they'll send out the orders on your behalf. This is really helpful when you've got a large order volume, or if you just simply don't want to bother with all the work on your own. You might even save money by working with a 3PL because what they will get is lower rates on postage and supplies because they ship so many orders. But always do the price research before you hire on a 3PL. Get rate sheets if you need them. Choosing between a 3PL and shipping on your own is a nuanced decision. So what I'm going to do here is come back to that question later when you have the context to understand it a little bit better. But for now, what I want to do is get into the 5 steps of e-commerce order fulfillment and how they vary based on self-shipping versus hiring a 3PL. Let's start with step number 1, receiving. The first thing you need to do before you start selling is make sure you have stuff to sell. Obviously, usually that means placing a bulk order with a manufacturer somewhere else, and then you'll need to get that shipped to you somehow, and that's usually going to involve freight. Now, that is a whole other topic. It's one that we've covered in some other videos, which are probably going to be linked somewhere up here, but for now, let's just say that when you are working on your own, receiving means that either you are going to have all the stock shipped to you, or you're going to have it shipped somewhere that you can pick it up. Now, if you've got relatively few items, or if they're small, this might involve getting a handful of large boxes mailed to you. Bigger shipments, however, you might be receiving 1 or more pallets of goods. Now, you can take those and you can unload them into your garage if you've got one. If you don't have a place where a pallet can be easily dropped off, for example, like you live in an apartment, those pallets might actually end up in a nearby warehouse where you can go unload them and then carry the stock back where it needs to go by car. And I'll tell you, I've actually done this myself. It is honestly pretty tricky, and I'm not a fan of it. Now, on the other hand, with a 3PL, the situation's a little different. Once you know when the bulk shipment is set to arrive, you'll just notify the 3PL. And when it does arrive, what's going to happen is that it usually comes by truck. They'll back that truck up to the door, and then the workers will go into the truck from the dock. They will unload the stock, and there's going to be no manual labor on your part. You just have to be a good communicator and do your paperwork properly so that the 3PL knows what to expect with that big shipment that's coming in. Once the inventory is received, you move on to step 2, which is inventory management. Now, when you receive a shipment, it's a good idea to count how many items that you've received. Maybe do some quality control as well. If you are shipping on your own, you can also enter in the amount of each unit you have on hand into your shopping site or your inventory management software, or even a spreadsheet if you're doing manual tracking. Just somewhere where you can keep track of inventory levels, and ideally one that automatically updates when those orders come in so you have to do less rework. When in doubt, keep it simple here. Software beats spreadsheets. You could do something like Send7 or Zoho or Seller Cloud if you're looking for software. If you only have one sales channel though, you may as well use the channel's built-in inventory level tools if you can. Now, if you work with a 3PL, most of them will do an inventory count when scanning your items into the system. And most will also keep up with the inventory levels for you. So when items are about to leave the warehouse, they get scanned out, and inventory will automatically update on most of their software. And most 3PLs are pretty good about allowing you to track this stuff, and it's almost always at no extra cost. Now, the only catch, if you got multiple 3PLs, you might end up needing extra inventory software to keep track of the inventory across different locations. But once you get to that point, the cost and the effort to keep that up will be a pretty small part of your overall operations. In other words, you're going to be in a good situation. Now, once the items are scanned into inventory, then you'll move on to step 3, and that's storage. And let's not overcomplicate things here. If you do this in-house, what that means is you're just going to have to store the item somewhere. A closet, your garage, a storage unit, I don't know, maybe your office building if you've got the physical space for it. If you work with a 3PL, they will find an available spot and they will put your items in there. You won't have to really think about that. And then they'll update their system so that when your orders come in, the staff are going to know where to look for the specific items that they need to pack and then send out to customers. Now, it's worth noting that 3PLs do charge for storage, but if your products are moving, it's a small portion of the total cost, which is primarily going to be postage, labor, and supplies. Now, with that in mind, let's move on to step 4, which is picking, packing, and shipping. This is where most of the order fulfillment work really takes place. Now, picking means retrieving items from inventory. Packing means putting them into individual packages to be shipped out, and then the shipping means adding postage and otherwise doing what needs to be done to prepare the package to go out in the mail. If you do this in-house, then every time you receive an order, you or your team will need to review the order information, and then you'll find the items that need to be sent out. You'll double check everything to make sure you pick the right items, and when you do this, you'll pack them carefully so that they don't break. This is going to mean using bubble wrap, paper, inserts, something else like that to keep items from rattling around in the box. It also means choosing the right outer packaging. Like sometimes you can send things out in a padded mailer, other times you actually need a rigid box with the corners. Now, one common mistake that you want to avoid here is putting tiny items in huge boxes. There's 2 problems with this. One being that it costs a lot more, and the other is you actually increase the risk of damage to the items because they just rattle around inside in the loose space. The next part's going to be printing out postage you put onto packages. For best results, go ahead and buy a label printer because they're more cost efficient in the long run, but honestly, you can use your regular inkjet or laser printer to accomplish the same task. If you do that, it's best to buy adhesive label paper and print onto that so that you can make the label and then kind of peel it off and then stick it right to the package. Now, as for where you get the postage, if you use certain systems, Shopify is one good example, you can actually get that postage at a steep discount. You can then just buy it from your own e-com system and print it and then apply it. The same thing also applies to Amazon sellers as well if you're working through Amazon Seller Central. Now, if you aren't getting postage at a discount through one means or another, go to ShipStation or EasyShip. The main thing you want to avoid doing is just don't buy it at retail price. The post office, the UPS store, you don't need to pay those rates. You'll just pay more that way, so get it at a discount. Now, nothing I said here is going to be too shocking shocking, but keep in mind, if you do this in-house, you're going to have to do this over and over again each time you get an order. And if you hire a 3PL, they will do all of this for you. Plus, they might be able to get a better rate on postage and supplies simply, again, because they ship so many orders for a lot of different people. That's often enough to offset their pick and pack fees, which are basically labor costs. But the only way you know for sure is to ask for rate sheets, so don't be shy about asking for those if you are researching different 3PLs. Now, once you get your orders packed, there's only one thing that you need to do, and that is step 5, mail pickup or drop off. Now, you can have USPS, UPS, and other major carriers actually pick up packages from your home or workplace for free or for a marginal fee. This is really helpful if you're shipping small volumes of orders. And that way you're not going to have to go to the post office every time you get a single order, or maybe 2 or 3. But if you get a lot, you really should make a trip to the post office or UPS store to get the items in the mail. It shouldn't take you too long since you've already printed the postage that you have paid for, but they're gonna need to scan them in regardless for the tracking information. And once a carrier's got that package, whoever you give it to, all you have to do is wait for them to deliver it to your customers. Like, it's out of your hands at that point. Now, if you're working with a 3PL, it's kind of similar. The carriers actually will come to them for pickup, so they don't have to worry about going to the post office or anything. Though it is worth noting that regardless of whether you ship on your own or hire help, if something goes wrong after the package is handed off to UPS, USPS, whoever, you are going to have to send a replacement for the lost or damaged shipment. And this happens from time to time no matter how much you prep. That's a whole order fulfillment process right there. All of which is going to beg the question, of course, of should you hire help? And that's a tough question to answer. If you are shipping a small order volume, say something under 100 orders per month as an example, you can probably ship on your own and even save a little bit of money. Now, this assumes that you've got the time and the space to do this, not to mention the will. If you're shipping a lot of orders on a regular basis, it's at least worth considering a 3PL. Even when it's a little more expensive, the time and effort that you will save on your part are often worth it because you can spend that time growing your business or really just relaxing if you want to do that. And sometimes you get a bit lucky and it can actually come out a bit cheaper because they get the lower postage fees, and that can offset labor sometimes. If you need tips on how to find the right order fulfillment company, check out this video, which is linked above my head somewhere. Now, that right there is the end of our ultimate guide to e-commerce order fulfillment. Whether you do it on your own or hire help, the 5 steps are going to remain the same. And that is receiving, inventory storage, pick, pack, and ship, and mail pickup or drop off. The question for you is, what is the best way to get it done? And that's not an answer that some YouTube guy is going to be able to answer for you. That's something you have to think about in regards to your situation. But as a quick reminder, we're Fulfillrite. We're an order fulfillment company that has shipped for thousands of e-commerce and crowdfunding clients before. We would be happy to help you ship as well. The quote doesn't cost a thing, so if nothing else, you get some good information about pricing, which could be really helpful to you if you're not sure how to proceed here. Link is down there in the description. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Don't forget to slap some postage on that bell so that we can express ship new videos to you as soon as they drop. And last but not least, if you've got any questions about how this order fulfillment stuff works, just leave a comment below. I will personally answer as many of them as we can.